Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. And today we're talking about growing your business, having a growth mindset, a mindset that's set up for success and growth. And then we're going to loop in a little bit about cash flow and why cash is king. Because, well, if you don't have it, you don't really have a business. So we're going to cover all of that in a very short period of time with a guest who's joining me from across the pond today. Chidi from the UK, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. Good to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation. We got to talking a little bit before recording, and you mentioned cash is king, which I think most people will know that. But there's this other element to cash flow that's actually your mindset. So I'm curious, why do you start with mindset and goals when you talk to your clients?
I think the key for me is more when we talk about mindset, I think destination, where you want to go. And a lot of times when it's like being in the gym and you're trying to, they say, well, what would you like to lift today? And automatically you marry that result with what you think you can achieve. So you think, well, I think I can do 10 kilos more. And so that becomes my goal. My goal is now 30 kilos from 20. But really, it's taking a step back to really understand what you want from life as yourself, and then what the business needs to deliver to give you that life. And that goals, it could give you a goal that's higher than you would have thought of originally. But then that's what we strive to.
Yeah, talk to me about this because it sounds like with that perspective, you run into a lot of people who just, maybe they start a business because they're passionate about the product or service, or they're creative, so they go into business around that thing, whatever it is. How often is it that you actually meet people who do this sort of work first, kind of the end in mind, if you will?
Well, when I do, it's a breath of fresh air. When I meet people that have uh, the end goal in sight from the beginning, whether it's to sell the business, whether it's to get a certain level of income, which is higher than they would normally have thought of, whether it's the time they want to spend on the business, it's really important to think about these things. I'll give you a very short example. I have a client who is a fitness instructor, and when we started, he was a fitness instructor in a gym. And the more we talked about what he wanted from his as a person, personally, what he wanted to buy, where he wanted to live, and then we then flipped that over to what the business is to deliver to him. And then he realized that he couldn't do that from the gym. He couldn't get that kind of return and time from the gym. He needs to think about online. He needed to think about rent his own space. He needed to think about getting other trainers involved to help him. And that forms a chain of actions has yielded him greatly today. And that same kind of logic could apply to a business who wants to even go even higher. Just really thinking about what you want. Sometimes you need someone to help you just kind of extract that information from you.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating, and if you're open to it, I'd love to dive into it because I do this sometimes with clients. We consult from the operational perspective, but when we're talking about pricing and scalability, I find that a lot of people don't realize that they're undercharging for the lifestyle that they think they want to live. Now, whether they actually want that or not is a totally different conversation. But in this scenario, with that, with your client, you just talked about, what were some of the calculations that you had him look at to where that was revealed to him?
So, and just to make this even simpler, I had, and this is an example where I was walking past my high street, and there was a new business setting up. They were just sort of installing it. It was a cafe. I walked in. we got on really well, me and the owner, and we had this really interesting conversation. So then I said to her, what do you want to make from this business? She kind of gave me a number. And then I said, okay, fine. So you need to then, if you put this into number of coffees you got to sell, you got to think about how many coffees you need to sell for the business to not just take and pay you, but to be able to make enough, cover its costs, maybe keep a little bit of buffer for reserves, and then pay you this amount that you want. And you know what? She didn't listen to me. So she set up a cafe that was catered for moms, like, stay at home moms. And she'd lost half of the space because she created like a playpen, right? So she lost half the space of this cafe. And then what happened was these moms came in, not that there's anything wrong with the moms, but they came in at lunchtime. They'd have one coffee between them. The babies would be playing or the kids would be playing. So it alienates everyone else. And so then you're not making a return, right? So it's that kind of planning, right? That would, what do I want? Where do I need to live? How much do I need? What does the business need to do? So then you ask yourself, okay, if the business is making me 500,000, then what products and what services, how am I going to position it so that I can price it right to be able to get more customers or clients, right? But also get enough money from them, enough revenue from them. So it's a snowball effect, but you need to start from step one. Because if that lady had listened to me, she would have still been in business today because she went bust.
Hmm. It's an all too common story, but I mean, it makes sense. I'm sure you add the second level of questioning there about, okay, let's say you want to make 500,000. How much time do you want to spend working? That really trips people up, doesn't it?
Correct. Because it's then you start to go into, okay, if I want to play golf every Friday, or if I want to do my yoga class every Tuesday afternoon for 2 hours, then, well, what do I need to put in place? When I bring this, when I put that in place, what are the risks? So it's just, you just get into this strategic mode, but all of it started from the first questions in the beginning, right? And then so like when you have even businesses who are turning over 1 million, but they want to sell, they want to exit. Then you start to, okay, what do we need to do? How does the business need to look? How do our finances need to look? How do I remove myself from the business so I'm not that one person that will put a buyer off, right? How do we set up a system that works almost on its own with me controlling some of the buttons? So these are it's it's an exciting journey for a business owner when you start to think in this way.
Yeah, I love walking people through that process because you really get to see the gaps, rather than anything else. You don't want to. I never do it from a perspective of here's everything that's wrong from your business. It's like here's the 3 or 4 things you need to tweak, and then you have a
Correct.
business that's scalable. And it sounds like you're doing kind of the same thing. I but I'm curious, when you find people who are in the shoes of that coffee shop owner or
Mhm.
the trainer client that you mentioned,
Yeah,
it can be so hard to see the forest through the trees, so to speak, and to say,
100%.
if she didn't change, so obviously she couldn't see it. But how
Correct.
do you get somebody or get a business to change their pricing? Because that pricing attracts the certain clientele, which now that it changes may push them away. And now you're almost starting from scratch. There's got to be an element of fear, and that we go back to that mindset piece. So, what's the process to actually do this the right way so you don't eliminate all of your business?
I think from all of the things that we do, number one, you have to make this seem, it needs to be understandable. It needs to be clear. And then the results of the actions needs to also be clear. Like we had another example. I love examples. We had an example of a client who we didn't actually do the accounts. My team just did the bookkeeping. But in the bookkeeping, we did the VAT, and we noticed that every quarter they were struggling to pay the VAT. I mean, this guy's in construction. There's loads of business, always busy. But then when you start to get to the bottom of it, you then realize there's this whole snowball effect where You price, you go to the wrong place to acquire clients. You acquire the wrong clients. Then you price them low. Then they're never happy. Then you can't employ the level of skill that you need to do an amazing job. And then all of a sudden you find that you're just running around and you're not making much money. And then when the VAT comes, when every revenue, all the revenue you get, you spend, and that's GST, by the way, taxes, that's what we
Yeah.
call VAT in the UK. When your GST tax or your VAT comes, then you spend the money. And so it was really taking it back to, okay, what are you good at? How do we package it so people can see the value in what you do? How do you do where's your social media, where's your before and after in your products? Where you getting your clients from? How do you get referrals from good clients? And then slowly he started, we had to get him pricing software. So he took the emotions out rather than him kind of going, I'm not sure how much they could pay. Just put the numbers in and the price will come out. And then so from there, all of a sudden he starts to turn himself around.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear. So what was the transition that he was able to go through?
Well, the transition was his wife had to go and find a part-time job because he couldn't afford to keep her in the business. But he was able to reverse that and bring the wife back in the business. And then everything just started to, he's not through the woods yet, but now he doesn't owe his taxes anymore. And he's starting to, he's got one sort of more highly skilled subcontractor, sorry, that helps him. So he's already just starting to build, because now when people are referring him, they're the good clients referring more good clients. And so and that's because I would see a roofer, one doing really well, one not doing well enough. You see a cybersecurity guy, one guy's doing amazing, one guy's barely making it. It's just the different approaches, the different investment that they make.
Yeah. And I see this a lot too. Like you said, you see one that's killing it and the same town, seemingly the same service, one guy can't stay afloat. So when
Yeah.
you're going through this process, like this guy in particular, how do you help them keep their head on straight, so to speak? Because it's very easy to revert back to that not so good client because they might be there. It might be way easier to acquire them rather than the ideal client as you're going through this transition. How do you keep them focused on that better future, if you will, and not
Yeah.
slipping back into the old ways?
I think one of the key bits, which is my background, is the financials. So the numbers have got to guide us here. Because what we're saying is that if we plot, if you have good financial processes in place, and then we have a plan, what that plan will tell you is linked to your goals. What we need to achieve with our goals, that goes into our financial plan. And then you can then start to see how it can work. What's the impact if we change this? What do we have to do if we change that? And then you get to start to get them to believe in the dream, what they're going to achieve, because the numbers really would guide. It's very hard to convince somebody to do something, but if you can show them the data and get them to understand, get them to believe in the numbers, and then we just work together to achieve it.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's where most entrepreneurs need to go when there's a problem, and it seems so simple that we don't go there. So I love that you're bringing this topic to light. What's one thing, if someone out there who's listening is thinking, maybe I've gone down this road, maybe I'm priced incorrectly, maybe I'm not set up for scale, or I won't be able to achieve those dreams like you talked about in those different examples. What's something you want them to ask themselves so that they can maybe get a clearer picture of where they want to go?
That's a very good question, because for a lot of businesses, right, especially the smaller ones, so startups, medium-sized businesses, a lot of them are looking at data in the past. And by that, I mean that you have your obligations that you're going to make, you're going to prepare your accounts, you're going to prepare your taxes, but that's all based on data in the past. And we can stare at it all we want, but it doesn't help us. What about the future? What about where we're going? What about how to be prepared? What about where to invest? Because what I notice is when I look at the books of successful businesses, it's not surprising when you see a big marketing budget. It's not surprising when you see a loan, when you see some assets. They back themselves and they invest in the business. But what just happened here? But it's really when you when you're able to look at the financials of the business, then it all starts to look more. Otherwise, it's like a huge risk. If you say to someone, "Oh, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to buy this, you got to invest in this," but let's have their financials. Let's forecast into the future. And then, so with the investment and the expected return on that investment, we can start to see how it plays out. And so, sitting down with business owners, what I find is that breaking these things down, turn it into numbers, they start to believe it. They start to see those zeros and they start to understand that they can achieve it. And then they have an action plan. Because then we break that down into 3 months, we break that down to 90 days, and then it's like monthly. What are you going to do this month? Okay, we've done that this month. What are we going to do next month? And that's just how you do it. There's no quick win. And it's very hard to just turn people around on just words, but the numbers guide.
People lie, numbers don't, right?
100%.
Chidi, I love it. This is awesome. Thank you for coming here today. And
That's
if the
great.
listeners want to reach out, if they want to learn more about you, where's a good place to go?
So my website, Virtual Focus Accountant, is a good place, but I'm also on LinkedIn. Chidi at Egbujie is my LinkedIn handle. So yeah, you can reach out to me, message me. I'm also Virtual Focus Accountants on Instagram.
Awesome. Wherever you're watching or listening, I'll put all of those links down in the description below, so you can go right there, go connect with Chidi on LinkedIn. If you're watching, the website is on the screen as well. Chidi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Brandon. It's great.
For those of you watching and listening, of course, we'd love to have you back. We love putting these episodes out 5 days a week. So make sure you subscribe or like it, whatever channel, whatever podcast player you're on. Save Harmonious at Lunch so you can download it every single day of the week, so we can help you build a more harmonious business and life. We'll see you on tomorrow's episode of Harmonious at Lunch.